Hey everyone, do you know what happened to me yesterday? I booked an Airbnb for my next trip. It got me thinking about all the things I've learned about using Airbnb over the years. So today, we're going on a deep dive into how to have a great first Airbnb experience. And if you like what you hear, don't forget to hit that subscribe button for more deep dives into all sorts of cool stuff.
That's a great idea. A lot of people are trying Airbnb for the first time, and it can be a bit confusing.
It definitely can be. Okay, so let's start with the basics. Why would someone choose Airbnb over a hotel? What are the big advantages?
Well, one of the biggest reasons is cost. Airbnbs can be much cheaper than hotels, especially if you're staying for a while or traveling with a group.
Right, you get more space for your money, and you often have a whole kitchen too. I remember one time I stayed in an Airbnb in a mountain town with my family. We had so much fun cooking meals together in the evenings. It felt like a real home away from home, and it saved us a ton of money on eating out.
Exactly. Having a kitchen can make a huge difference, especially for families or people who have special dietary needs. It gives you so much more flexibility.
Plus, you often get to stay in cool neighborhoods where you can experience a city like a local. I love that about Airbnb. It's like you're getting a glimpse into someone else's life.
Absolutely. It's a totally different travel experience than staying in a generic hotel room.
But I have to admit, the first time I used Airbnb, I was a bit nervous. I wasn't sure what to expect. I think a lot of first-time users feel that way.
I understand. It's natural to have some jitters when you're trying something new, especially when it involves staying in someone else's home.
So how do you get past those first-timer nerves? What's the secret to finding a great Airbnb?
The key is to do your research and read the reviews carefully.
Reviews are so important, they can give you a real sense of what the place is like, what the host is like, and what to expect.
It's like having a friend who's already stayed there, giving you the inside scoop. They can tell you things that the listing might not mention, like whether the street is noisy at night or if the shower pressure is amazing.
And you can learn so much from reading between the lines, too. Like, if someone mentions that the Wi-Fi was a bit spotty, you know that might be an issue if you need to work remotely. Or if someone raves about how friendly the host was,
Mhm.
that's a good sign that you'll have a positive experience.
That's a great point. It's not just about the overall star rating. You want to dig into the details and see what other guests are saying.
And don't just read the glowing 5-star reviews. Pay attention to the 4 and 3-star reviews, too. They often have the most helpful information because they'll point out both the good and the bad things about the place.
Exactly. Those reviews can be gold mines because they give you a more balanced perspective.
Okay, so we've talked about reviews. What else is important to consider when choosing an Airbnb?
Location.
Oh,
Location.
right. You can find amazing Airbnbs in all sorts of neighborhoods, but you need to make sure the location is right for you.
Think about what you want to be close to. Do you want to be in the heart of the action? Or do you prefer a quieter neighborhood? Do you need to be near public transportation? Is it important to have parking?
Those are all great things to think about. I learned my lesson about location the hard way. On one of my first Airbnb trips, I booked a charming little apartment in Paris, but I didn't realize it was miles away from any metro stations. I ended up spending a fortune on taxis.
That's a classic mistake. It's easy to get caught up in the beautiful photos and forget to check the practical details.
So true. Now I always zoom in on the map
Yeah.
and make sure I understand exactly where the Airbnb is located in relation to the things I want to see and do.
That's a smart strategy. And speaking of being strategic, another important tip is to communicate with the host before you book.
Oh, yeah, that's a good one. I always send a quick message to the host just to ask a few questions and get a sense of their communication style.
Exactly. It's a chance to see how responsive they are and whether they seem helpful and friendly. It can also be a good opportunity to clarify any details about the listing that you're not sure about.
I found that hosts are usually really happy to answer questions. They want to make sure you have a great stay, so they're often willing to go the extra mile to be helpful.
Absolutely. And if a host seems dismissive or unhelpful in their responses, that could be a red flag.
Good point. It's better to find out about potential issues before you book. rather than having a frustrating experience later on.
Speaking of potentially frustrating experiences, let's talk about check-in. Have you ever had any awkward or confusing check-in experiences?
Oh my gosh, yes. One time I booked an Airbnb in a rural area, and the host had left the key under a flower pot. But when I got there, it was pouring rain, and the flower pot had tipped over. The key was buried in the mud. I had to dig around in the dirt for ages before I finally found it. Not exactly the relaxing start to my vacation that I had hoped for.
Oh no, that sounds like a nightmare.
It wasn't ideal. Now I always make sure to ask the host for very clear and specific check-in instructions. Like exactly where is the key located? Is there a code for the lockbox? Do I need to call someone when I arrive?
It's always better to be over-prepared than under-prepared when it comes to check-in. It sets the tone for your whole stay.
Exactly. And once you're finally inside the Airbnb, you want to make sure you have everything you need. Right.
Absolutely. It's important to check what amenities are included. Things like towels, shampoo, a hairdryer, a coffee maker. Knowing what's provided can save you from packing unnecessary items or having to run to the store as soon as you arrive.
I once stayed at an Airbnb that didn't have a can opener. We were planning to make pasta with a jarred sauce.
Yeah.
And we had to get creative with a butter knife, let's just say. It wasn't the most elegant culinary experience.
That's those little things that you don't think about until you need them. I always double check the listing, see if there's a washer and dryer too, especially if I'm on a longer trip. It's so convenient to be able to do laundry.
Yes. And it can save you from having to pack a whole suitcase full of clothes.
Yeah.
So we've talked about choosing a great Airbnb, communicating with the host, having a smooth check-in, and making sure you have all the amenities you need. What's next?
Well, once you're settled in, it's important to remember that you're a guest in someone's home, so being a respectful and considerate guest is essential.
Right. It's not like staying in a hotel where you can kind of do your own thing and nobody really notices. In an Airbnb, you're sharing someone's space. So it's important to be mindful of their rules and their belongings.
Exactly. Things like following their house rules, keeping the noise down, and cleaning up after yourself are really important.
And if something breaks or you accidentally spill something, don't try to hide it. It's always better to let the host know right away so they can address the situation.
Definitely. Honesty and open communication are key to having a positive experience for both the guest and the host.
And speaking of positive experiences, those good vibes are what lead to those all-important good reviews.
Right.
We were talking earlier about how important reviews are when you're choosing an Airbnb. But they're also important once your stay is over.
Absolutely. Leaving a thoughtful and honest review helps other travelers make informed decisions. And it also lets the host know how they're doing and what they can improve.
So it's like a cycle of good karma. You rely on reviews to find a great Airbnb, and then you leave a review to help others. It's a win-win for everyone. It really is. Okay, so we've covered a lot of ground here. We talked about why people choose Airbnb, how to find the right place, the importance of reviews, and communication with the host, and some tips for being a good guest. What else should people know, especially if they're new to Airbnb?
I think it's important to remember that Airbnb offers so much more than just apartments and houses. You can find all sorts of unique and interesting places to stay, like cabins, yurts, tree houses, even castles.
Ooh, a castle. That would be amazing.
Right. There's something for everyone, no matter what your budget or your travel style is.
It's like a whole world of possibilities opens up when you start exploring Airbnb. It's not just about finding a place to sleep. It's about having an experience.
Exactly. And it's a great way to discover hidden gems that you might not find otherwise. You can stay in local neighborhoods, meet interesting people, and get a real taste of what it's like to live in a different place.
It's like a little adventure, even if you're just traveling to a nearby city.
It definitely is. And as you get more comfortable with Airbnb, you can start to experiment with different types of stays. Maybe you'll try a farm stay, or a glamping trip, or even a houseboat.
Okay, I have to admit, that's making me a little less nervous. and a lot more excited about booking my next Airbnb. It sounds like there's a whole world of cool experiences out there,
Yeah.
just waiting to be discovered.
There really is. And that's the beauty of Airbnb. It's a platform that encourages exploration, connection, and adventure.
So what's the big takeaway for our listeners who are thinking about taking the Airbnb plunge for the first time?
Don't be afraid to dive in. Embrace the possibilities. Do your research. Read those reviews carefully. And don't hesitate to communicate with your host. Most importantly, have fun.
That's great advice. And remember, you can find amazing Airbnb experiences all over the world, often at a fraction of the cost of a traditional hotel. You can cook your own meals, live like a local, and discover hidden gems you might never find otherwise.
It's a fantastic way to travel.
Well, I think that about wraps it up. For this deep dive into Airbnb, we covered a lot of ground today, from choosing the right place to being a good guest. Hopefully this has given you some helpful tips and insights to make your first Airbnb experience a great one.
And who knows, maybe it's inspired you to try something new and exciting on your next trip.
If you enjoyed this episode and want to hear more deep dives into fascinating topics, be sure to hit that subscribe button and give us a like. We'll be back soon with more insights, tips, and fun explorations. Until then, happy travels.
Thanks for joining the conversation here at Kaz English. We hope you found it fun and informative. Don't forget to check out kazapp.uk. That's kazapp.uk for more tips, resources, and interactive practice. Keep exploring, keep chatting, and we'll catch up with you again soon.